Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up.
Claim allows you to kind of use your card to unlock your city. When people move from Arizona State to New York City, they're using Claim to go find their new favorite spots. So we do think about this as meeting consumers in kind of key moments in their life and serving them with the perfectly matched brand for that moment in their life so that they develop a relationship with that brand going forward.
Hey marketers, we know you love a TLDR, so I'll get right to the point. You know Wix, the website builder with professional templates? Well, meet Wix Studio, made for freelancers and agencies with multiple clients. It has everything you need to efficiently build and operate campaigns across multiple channels. With Wix Studio, you can build websites that scale with dynamic pages and reusable assets, fast-track projects with integrations from Meta, Zapier, Google Ads, and more. Finish A/B testing in days, not weeks. Publish social content, send emails, optimize SEO, and so much more. Oh, and reporting is covered. With integrations for tracking and analytics tools like GA4 and SEMrush, basically, it's an all-in-one toolkit that scales with you. Drive real client growth with Wix Studio. Go to wixstudio.com. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Millennials. Today, I have Luke and Sam from Claim. Sam is the CEO and co-founder, and Luke is the head of marketing and partnerships. They got some exciting news. They just raised their Series A. They're trying to disrupt advertising and marketing. So we're excited to chat about all things marketing because it's a marketing podcast, but I'll let them talk a little bit about how they came into the marketing space, and then we can have the conversation. So I'll let Luke or Sam kick it off.
Well, Daniel, thanks for having Luke and I on the podcast. We are very excited to spend some time with you. So as Daniel mentioned, I'm Sam, CEO of Claim. Been in the marketing space for 5 years. After undergrad, I went and worked in investing at Goldman for a number of years. Afterwards, I went back to do my MBA, and that's when I dove headfirst into marketing. Actually wrote my master's thesis at Harvard on customer acquisition and all the nuances and opportunities there. And in my final semester, wrote about what became Claim. And we'll talk all about Claim in a minute. But Luke, I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Daniel. I'm Luke deWilde. I've been at Claim for the last year or so, but prior to being part of the team, I've had kind of a meandering journey. But I was an early investor in Claim, actually, in my last role doing venture and innovation at the Golden State Warriors. But before that, I was agency side coming out of college. Went and got my MBA as well, and had a kind of foray into investing and actually sports, and thinking about kind of the future of sports, which included a lot of how do we go acquire and think about Gen Z customers. And that's where I came across Sam and our co-founder Tap, and was really excited about what they were building, and eventually decided to join this tiny little startup that has continued to grow since I've joined in the last year.
Well, I want to kick it off of what was the marketing pain point or that key pain point that made you want to start this company?
Totally. So let's kind of walk through the founding arc of Claim in just a few minutes here. We started by asking ourselves, what would it look like if consumers could own things on the internet? And we've seen glimpses of this in places like gaming and collectibles and Web3. But really, it was this premise of what would it mean to own private property, actually own something on the internet? And so we started building Claim by giving people the opportunity to trade branded trading cards, almost like Pokémon cards for brands. Picture like a McDonald's trading card or something else. And with that consumer experience, we actually started to find a lot of traction. People had a shockingly high engagement rate with kind of trading around these branded trading cards. And this was just in a small beta that we ran. And the goal there was to make something useful for consumers in a time when we're getting bombarded with ads all the time. Wouldn't it be fun to create a little bit of a game around brands that you love? We soon discovered in kind of the startup test and learn ethos that people were actually using these trading cards to go spark experiences and go try brands together. And we said, this is pretty interesting. What if we go talk to marketers about this little fun test that we're running and ask them about how they're thinking about customer acquisition. And what we heard and the pain points, Daniel, that we heard time and time again are we're losing sight of our customers. Everything you hear in the market about doom and gloom, cookies declining, iOS 14, we're on iOS 18 now. But iOS do not track, making the picture more and more blurry. Ad blockers, 60% of Gen Z uses ad blockers. All of this is contributing to an economic picture for marketers that's really difficult, where we're seeing return on ad spend converge to 2x on the major platforms. People are throwing money to the wind with influencer strategies and hoping it works. And that's kind of the hair on fire problem that we hear every day when we talk to marketers. And so we said, well, that's pretty cool. If we have this customer acquisition tool based on an engaging consumer experience, how can we really make a product and an experience out of it? And what we did, and this was the big unlock for Claim, is we actually asked our consumers to link their financial transactions to Claim so that we could better understand their consumer spending history, understand what brands they actually try with Claim, and see what kind of relationships they build with Claim going forward. And that's kind of the secret unlock for us, is kind of the end-to-end understanding of the consumer. It allows us to do a bunch of things which we can dig into, but allows us to target really well in an age where targeting is more difficult, allows us to attribute really precisely in an age where attribution is difficult and offline attribution just doesn't work. And then again, it allows us to kind of build a relationship between consumers and brands that's all around your friends. And so the last place, this was the major kind of, I guess, jumping off point to building Claim as the company that exists today, is people trust their friends for making decisions. We all know this. Social proof, word of mouth has always been the gold standard in marketing. But if we can really build a social experience around that, where we give you and your friends a chance to try one brand a week together, that creates a lot of magic and a lot of fun and a lot of delight for our partners and for our customers. And so really the goal for Claim is to fix advertising as we know it. And that's what we're digging into.
Yeah, I mean, Gen Z is thinking differently now. And the major group of people who want to try new things are Gen Z, especially millennials too. I would say millennials too. Millennials are very discoverability people. They always want to discover the new thing. But Gen Z want to have more of a experiential learning. But I want you to go into, what is it like marketing to Gen Z? Why are they different than every other generation?
It's a really good question. I think one of the things that we've seen is attention spans are really, really short with Gen Z. And I think that's thanks to kind of the video first set of tools and social experiences that they have. And they don't respond to ads and kind of brand outreach in the same way as millennials, as our generation. And I think that as a result, we have to meet them where they are. I think we have to do things that are more focused on social proof, on things that their friends are doing, on things like FOMO, on also really like having core experiences. I think oftentimes the Gen Zers that we speak to very frequently say that they don't necessarily like social, but it's where their lives happen. It's where it's where kind of their social life takes place, is where the news is with their friends and nationally and locally in their communities. And so we wanted to build a social experience where it's a weekly active experience. It's not a daily active. We're not trying to glue people to their phones. We're trying to use their phones as a jumping off point to go have an in-store real experience with their friends in a social way. And that's been the real secret sauce that has kept our retention and growth really high, is that our users absolutely love the experience of pulling something from us, of getting a reward from us, and then going out into the real world and experiencing things. And that's something that I think has been kind of core to the next paradigm of social apps that we've seen, whether it be Partyful or Claim or other things like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies are doing this hiddenly right now, which the models are a little messed up because, for example, the reason why people are in DoorDash and Uber Eats and stuff like that is really is a marketing tool, not a retention tool. And it's actually screws restaurants out of profits because it's basically like buying a Facebook ad and then you market the same person and they buy another product off the Facebook ad again and another one off the Facebook ad again, instead of acquiring them once and keeping them as a customer coming back. So I want to go also into why you think the evolution of customer acquisition. What is the evolution? Where are we at in that sense of what are new things marketers should be thinking about doing now?
Sure. I think, evolution one was web one, essentially, display ads, search, et cetera. You know, iteration two is social and everything we're seeing on Meta, TikTok, et cetera. Evolution three, I think, needs to be something that feels far more personal. It doesn't feel like something that's trying to grab your attention. It needs to feel like it's authentic to you as a consumer and you are a good fit for the brand. And that sort of non-transactional or non-monetary brand consumer fit, I feel like, is the unlock here. And I think the way to do that is you associate with friends who already go to that brand. And so the second kind of parallel dynamic we've seen in customer acquisition is just the concentration of the major platforms. Let's use the DoorDash example that you mentioned. At the beginning, DoorDash was a secret unlock for small businesses. It was a completely new revenue channel. But over time, in addition to the margin that restaurants have to pay to DoorDash, there's promotions that have to be run. There's placement within the retail media ecosystem that needs to be run. And you're right. I think it does break unit economics for restaurants. And likewise, we compare Claim against Meta and TikTok and the other major customer acquisition channels out there. And those customer acquisition channels have concentrated a lot of the power in the market such that marketers rely on them almost as drugs. And that if you put $1 into Meta, you'll reliably get $2 out. And so a lot of businesses were built on that sort of heartbeat. But over time, if you decide I want to pull back spend, it's going to impact growth. For example, if you decide near the end of a quarter I want to pull back spend, the algorithm doesn't respond favorably to that. And so I think there has been this concentration of power towards these major platforms because they work well at scale. And kind of the response to that has been, let's go find influencers. Let's go find spokespeople who are brand aligned and can go capture a bunch of new customers. But again, I think the attribution model breaks there. It's kind of one and done. And we see a really long tail for influencers where, just like venture capital, I think the top bucket will perform very well and the rest of the distribution does not. So this is kind of why Claim exists now, is in light of the difficult marketing picture for marketers, in light of people spending 4, 5, 6 hours on their day, scrolling on their phones. Can we invent this new kind of ritual for people to go out and have experiences with their friends in person? Get off your phone, online to offline, because if we can do that, we create more magic around that experience. Let me give you an example. If I have a Blank Street Claim, for example, Blank Street Coffee is one of Claim's partners, and Luke and I go to Blank Street together for the first time, there's a newness to that experience. And we've now had a conversation at Blank Street. Hopefully our friendship has gotten a little bit deeper, and we've now created a memory around Blank Street. In best case, that becomes our new meetup spot. Worst case, I'm going to overvalue whatever the monetary, incentive was for that experience because it's now part of Luke and I's shared history. And again, if we can get people thinking more about real world relationships and not about, am I going to click this ad because I don't really know it's an ad? We think that's part of the secret sauce for the next wave of kind of true customer interaction. And I should note too that the kind of paradigm shift that we're making here is right now, if you're a brand, you're taking your marketing budget, you're saying I'm going to deploy $2 million on Meta and run a bunch of campaigns. I'm going to deploy X here as part of my media mix. We want you to stop paying the big ad platforms and instead pass the CPA or pass the CAC back through to consumers. And that's really how the Claim model works, is let's actually take that budget, let's pass it back through the consumers to induce them to have the full brand experience. Go in to your store, go online, pay full price. You get a new customer, you only pay when that new customer actually pays full price, and the customer gets the full experience. It's a lot closer to going to Costco and getting a free sample at the end of the aisle than it is walking down the street and having people scream at you to try their product. So anyways, I'll stop there.
No, I think the two things I'm seeing, just because I hear my wife talking about e-commerce all day, is a lot of brands are focused on net new customer acquisition than ever before. Before it was like, hey, let's put one in one. But now they're realizing that they're paying the platform to acquire the same customer a lot. And their big focus is how many net new, even if they can get it at 50 to 100, because they know once they're in the ecosystem, they can now market to them because they own that customer, they own that person now. I see a lot more brands focusing on net new, which was more than, I mean, it's kind of an obvious thing to be focusing on, but you kind of get stimulated by that ROAS, by that CAC, and then you're thinking, oh, I'm acquiring customers from this, but really you're double paying, triple paying sometimes for things you
Exactly.
shouldn't be doing. And I think
And you,
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, you had, Marco from Sephora on a recent episode, and he talked about the difference between return on ad spend ROAS and incremental ROAS, meaning of the, of the revenue that you drove to the company as a product of the ad campaign, what actually came from new customers. And so that is what we are obsessed with every single day is the new customer acquisition aspect of it, because brands shouldn't double pay. And that's what, the attribution side is difficult, but we also as Claim just want to stay out of loyalty. I think brands either can find any number of white glove, white labeled loyalty solutions, or they've built theirs in-house. Sephora has an incredible, loyalty program. But we want to stay in the acquisition world. And we think that the best proof for acquisition is not a tracking pixel. It's not email. It's not all these things that customers can easily double up on. It's financial transactions. And so with Claim, customers often and give us 2 years of financial transactions where we can look back at that and say, hey, Daniel has shopped at, these 3 places, but not this one. And so he'd be a great customer candidate for this one. And that happens to be a Claim partner. And then we can give you an opportunity to go to that brand within 7 days, because that's our attribution window. Your claim expires every week. And what we're able to tell brands then is, hey, look, based on first party data here, this customer had never been part of your ecosystem before, and now they are. And now you can retarget them or reactivate them or otherwise engage them, to your point.
Yeah, I think that's really smart because, I mean, you gave Blank Street, for example. If you go into Blank Street, the minute you put in your credit card, they ask you to join their loyalty program, and then you're kind of stuck into their ecosystem every time you go back because they'll give you a free coffee after how many ever dollars you spend there. But you don't need to be that person owning that market. But I do like the sense of, I actually had this like nostalgia experience with my wife the other day because we do half birthdays in like celebrations with me and my wife. But I remember like one of the best gifts she gave me was like Alfred coffee. Like she made like a personalized stamp card that she would buy me like a couple Alfred coffees to go back. And now it's just burnt in my brain that we had this experience with Alfred coffee. And every time I see Alfred coffee, I go back and just think about that experience because she gave me that as a gift. Even though there's so many other coffee shops, it just that nostalgia and that experience that I had because of that coffee shop, it makes me go back more, even though, and nobody's paying me to do that. I'm just going because of that experience. And every time I see one, I go to Alfred. So it's just what you're saying. People always remember those restaurant experience. I mean, there's a risk that you turn people off because if you give them a bad experience, then it could go the other way. They never come back. So delivering that good experience up front. If you have a brand that knows how to do that, get them in the store and actually give them the great experience.
Yeah, I think it's worth really diving into that Alfred's example. I think especially because the way that we have built Claim, every week we drop you one of 3 kind of brand trading cards that does feel really fun, really personal, and really joyful. It's a moment of delight. It comes out of a trading card pack that breaks open. You pick your brand for the week. And we try to make that experience really joyful. We're not naming our things kind of like our claims all have names. They all have kind of like these little mini stories that share what the brand is and really gives you a sense of why you might fall in love with this brand. And I think the point is to create that experience that you've just described where you fall in love with the brand and do that at scale. And that's why, everything is very Gen Z coded in the app. And so a lot of our trading card names, have some sort of Gen Z slang incorporated in them. But it really is that same kind of experience that's geared towards that brand love.
It's funny because even though it is coded in Gen Z, I remember as a millennial going into middle school trading Pokemon cards and baseball cards with my friends, and it is coded into current digital culture right now because it was physical, but that nostalgia of actually keeping cards, trading cards has been around for. It's a habit that people know. So it's pretty cool to have that experience. And as you're talking about it, I could see many evolutions of, hey, I have this trading card. Would you want to trade me? You go to Blank Street and I'll go to whatever other one that's closer to me because I want to try something else, not Blank Street. And you can trade your trading cards with other people in the future. I was just thinking out loud, but
Not even in the future. No, it's an excellent point, and you can trade them. You can trade your claims with anyone else in the app. I think that's part of the fun experience we built, where I might have a Blank Street one. You might have a Shake Shack one of our partners, or Sweet Green, or Levain, and maybe you're out of town that week, or you don't want it for whatever reason. You'd rather have Blank Street. Well, then we can trade in the app, or you can send a gift, to the point with Alfred. So it's that sort of making things feel more social and personal. That is the key here. I think a failure state for claim is if my Blank Street coffee claim is worth $5, and to me it's worth $5. What we see really often, and users tell us every day, is my claim feels like it's worth more than $5 to me. It's the experience that you had with Alfred. We've kind of built a perception gap between perceived value and financial value, and that's our secret sauce. That's kind of our unfair advantage, because relationships matter, and shopping with friends is going to increase that gap over time.
yeah, I think also when people always tell millennials, hey, don't go buy that $5 cup of coffee, or don't go and save that $5 coffee for the future, I actually like it more as the ritual than the actual drink itself. Like, I like going out every morning and getting my coffee because it's my chance to clear my mind and doing something. It's not the purchase. And I think people do too much of valuing what the monetary value than what the actual experiential value of those experiences are. For me, going to get my morning coffee is something I just like to do every morning. It's just ritual. The price is not something that bugs me. There's other prices that bug me, but when it's part of something I like to do as my ritual, it's so much different than saving that $5 of coffee because one day I get to buy a car or something like that. So.
Totally. We also think there's a lot of it's a hard time to be a brand. It's a hard time to be a consumer for a lot of reasons. It's gotten harder over the last five years or so, in particular. And we see that there's an opportunity still for a while where there's a lot of waste in the system, where there are people who are benefiting and companies who are benefiting from it being a harder time to be a consumer and a brand. And instead, we'd like to make it easier for both sides and basically stop donating to your local advertiser and start actually giving value to your consumers. And we think that basically there's a lot of middlemen involved in this that don't need to be. And we can make it easier and more joyful to have that morning coffee and actually try somewhere new, and have that part of clearing your head be, hey, there's actually a different coffee shop around the corner that I've always had my eye on, but I've never tried. And we think that there's a big opportunity in our system and in our cities and our experiences to explore more.
The other aspect that we hear often is that, and claims across 90 college campuses in the US, and for a while, actually, the contact button in the app went to my iMessage. So I had a very intimate link to our user base that did not scale, crucially. But one thing that we heard then and we hear now is that a lot of Gen Zers aren't broke, but they are discerning. They are willing to try new brands, but they want some sort of social proof or inducement to do so. And Gen Z is trialing brands more than any other generation. We see that in the data. But if we can actually say, if we can productize kind of the word of mouth aspect of, hey, during the drop, for example, it'll say, Luke and 47 friends already shop here. Well, this is kind of the inducement. This is the trigger that I need to go try this brand. And yes, I might not have had the discretionary, spend to do so, but I do want to go try because there's this little carrot, and I am going to build a relationship with that brand over time. I think that's kind of what we're seizing on in Gen Z, is this yearning for trial and discoverability, but just a little bit of a push in that direction.
Yeah, it's also, I was talking to, I think the episode's going to drop in a couple weeks, but her market is older women, and actually older women are the most brand loyal. And the reason they don't target Gen Z for their beauty brand is because Gen Z have more time to try new things in their day than an older woman does. A older woman really just wants to stick to a brand that works for them, where Gen Z are different. So if you can get them trying something, loving something early, then later on they become more and more brand loyal as a consumer. And it's harder than ever now because everything is becoming a commodity. Even in SaaS, it's become a commodity, everything. So I do like the sense of passing off some of your marketing spend to give an incentive to someone to buy rather than just giving it to the ad platform to do that. But I want to go into, so if I'm a head of marketing, I come to you, I want to run a campaign. I have a marketing budget. I'm spending most of my money on Meta, Google. What would you recommend my media mix be, and what would that campaign look like if I did this new model of customer acquisition?
Totally. Launching a campaign on Claim is very simple. And again, it's hopefully a breath of fresh air from running a campaign on Instagram. What I mean by that is, on Instagram, you'll say, here are my campaign parameters: duration, audience targeting, budget. At the end of the campaign, it'll say, here's all your result metrics: CPM, CPC, CPA, whatever. On Claim, we work with CMOs and VPs of marketing. We'll say, let's set your CPA at the beginning. Let's guarantee a CPA. And that gives Luke and I a lot of joy, because we can literally guarantee that as a partner, our brand will grow economically because we're hardwiring in a CPA from the beginning. Now, we'll work with them to set that CPA at a level that will work well in the Claim marketplace. But it's still a CPA that's very competitive with what they're getting elsewhere. So this should be an economic channel. Then what we'll do is we'll put together creative mock-ups, the trading cards themselves, the kind of Pokémon cards for brands. We'll use the brand language. We'll kind of Gen Z-ify it. We'll use a hero product or a menu item in the image to get people thinking emotionally and not transactionally. And then we'll go ahead and run that campaign. And we'll typically say, here are our targets for the campaign: CPA, max spend. And then the beauty of it is we will bill after we actually bring in true new customers on the basis of customer acquisition. And so it's purely pay for performance. We're confident that the system works. And so after, the campaign is over, we'll say, here's all the results from the campaign. And we'll take the number of newly acquired customers and multiply by the CPA. And that's it. So what it doesn't mean, what it doesn't entail is, we don't need to integrate with e-commerce flows. We don't need to integrate with point of sale systems. We have all the first party data ourselves. And so we can demonstrably show how the campaign worked. And really the fun part of it, and what Luke and I get to do when we talk to marketers, is in our first conversation, we'll say, here's how your brand's performing with Gen Z today. We'll say, here's the penetration rate you have among Gen Z, average transaction value, who's your top customer, at least identify them by the school and the number of times that they've been. And then over time, we can say, here's how using Claim actually increased your penetration within Gen Z over the course of the campaign. And we can work with them to set priorities for how fast they want to grow.
What's up, marketers? Time for a Wix Studio recap. Here are 5 things you can get done faster using Wix Studio. 1. Scale content with dynamic pages and reusable assets. 2. Integrate with Meta, Zapier, Google Ads, and more. 3. Launch and measure A/B tests with intuitive design tools. 4. Connect to analytics tools like GA4 and SEMrush, and 5. Manage your client's social media all from one dashboard. Ready for more? Go to wixstudio.com. That's wixstudio.com.
How does it, because for your model, it's, the B2B2C model. So you have to also market to Gen Z as well to get them on the platform. So what are you doing to acquire that number of Gen Z to make sure that these businesses can get that influx of Gen Z? What does that model look like?
Super good question. We started by getting the consumer network because we need Gen Zers on the platform who want to try brands so that brands are interested. And so we launched first at Harvard's campus, and we had over half of Harvard's undergrads on in the first month through a bunch of guerrilla marketing and a lot of kind of scrappy ambassador work and student organizations. We then launched at other Boston campuses. And then about a year and a half ago, we went nationwide to about 90 college campuses. And we've been able to take previous playbooks that existed, places like Bumble, places like Tinder, places like Be Real, and adapt those sort of growth playbooks to reflect Claim as a social shopping experience. And so we can now go launch at a campus. Let's say we wanted to go launch at Arizona State University. Our success metric is, can we get to 15 to 20% of the student body in the first 6 to 8 weeks? We've been able to replicate that over and over again. The learning for us in the last few weeks, actually, it's very raw, is that as we grew very broad on the consumer side and we onboarded new brand partners, we started to stretch ourselves too thinly, meaning we were on all these different college campuses, but some of our partners might not have geographic or actual brick and mortar presences in those places. And so I'll tell you a quick story. One of our partners wanted to do a new store opening with us in Philadelphia, and they're a great partner. So we said, absolutely. And that meant that we took our entire growth team, flew them into Philadelphia for a weekend, and kind of emergency war roomed what it would look like to launch at Penn, Drexel, Temple, et cetera. That ended up being a successful new store opening. We blew it out of the water for our partner, which felt good. But it's not sustainable as a company because we can't take our growth team and kind of deploy them ad hoc over time. And so we as a company had to say, actually, as a marketplace, we're going to focus more on kind of the density of brands and consumers, meaning we're going to focus on 6 DMAs or trade areas, essentially, being New York, Philly, Boston, Chicago, et cetera. And that allows us as a company to grow within those markets really deeply and actually move off of college campuses and grow into the 23 to 27-year-old demo, but also means that we can sign brand partners in those geos to better serve that audience. And so it is like DoorDash, it is like Uber, it is like Airbnb, where you do have to serve kind of both sides of the market concurrently. And until the marketplace reaches scale, this is the blessing and the cost of marketplace businesses, you have to kind of support one side or the other. And so we've been trying to keep a firm eye on which side needed more support over time. And with our Series A, kind of the thesis there is we have excellent brand partners. We've shown that we can grow. Can we now get the marketplace to balance? And that's what we're hyper-focused on right now.
There are those built-in brands that are at a lot of college campuses that if you can go to 30 college campuses, and like Pita Pit, for example, you can go to like 20 college campuses and there's a Pita Pit there or something like that. But there's also those brands that aren't. And also what's good about at least starting with this model, a lot of college campuses have tap cards or like spending cards that you can go spend at brands in that campus usually. Like, for example, I went to University of Cincinnati, we had Subway, Panda Express literally on campus. So those were brands, and those are big brands that are everywhere. So, and it was part of like a swipe card too. So we had cash on there spending at those places as well. So it's built into the system as well.
Yeah, I think college students, again, are not spending as much as millennials, clearly, and even Gen Z is not as they're coming into buying power. But I think the more forward-thinking marketers are realizing that there was an over-rotation into performance, and actually kind of the top of funnel discovery really matters, and it's a harder job to do. And so even if we do get somebody to go to Pita Pit for the first time as a college student, hopefully their LTV grows over time. When they do move to a new city, hopefully that there's a Pita Pit there, and we can kind of build that relationship over time. And so the way that we mention, the kind of way we message Claim to users is that Claim allows you to kind of use your card to unlock your city. When people move from Arizona State to New York City, they're using Claim to go find their new favorite spots, and your credit card is kind of the tool that unlocks that. So we do think about this as meeting consumers in kind of key moments in their life and serving them with the perfectly matched brand for that moment in their life so that they develop a relationship with that brand going forward.
And there's also, people, there's, like I said, there's so many options out there now. Sometimes it's like Cheesecake Factory. There's too many things on the menu to decide what coffee shop, especially in heavily dense city areas where there's a lot of choices, like New York, where you can go to 5 different coffee shops in the matter of one block walk.
Yeah, we feel really strongly about building a sort of pull model from a user perspective, where we always leave them wanting a little bit more from us. We really don't want to be bombarding people. We really don't want to be demanding that you try a million things. We don't want to create the paradox of choice where you have 1,000 restaurants on the platform to choose from. You spend all your time, looking for the restaurant on Open Table or looking for the movie on Netflix. We want to give you something you're probably going to like, give you a couple of options and let you plan the rest of your day, spend the time with the friend and focus on actually being in the world. And we find that that's led to both super, super high redemption rates, often 10% plus from first impression. So really, really high. And then also just, it's simple. We'd rather have our users want more drops from us rather than less.
Also, I think the pay to play model works well because if people aren't spending, they don't really have the marketer's not out budget just because you're showing them the store, the impression, or the click on that certain ad. You actually have to pay for the actual redemption of item at store. So
yeah, look, it's on us to kind of deliver our built-in audience of Gen Z to the marketer. That's exactly right.
I also have a question I ask everybody in this podcast. What is a marketing hill you would die on?
You want to go first, Luke?
I think the thing I would die on is social proof is everything. I think it's all about making sure that you are getting targeted, tailored recommendations, not from influencers, not from algorithms, but really focused on, once you get that nudge to try someplace, that you have reason to want to go there from people that you trust. I think everything in the social world is getting sort of cozier, more intimate, and more based on interacting with people that you trust. And so if it's the algorithm delivers you videos to watch and other things, people are in the DMs, they're in the group chats, they're talking to each other about what they like, what they want. And I think as our world continues to get sort of more intimate in that way, social proof matters more and more. Marketers want to be in the group chat more and more. And the best way to get there is to be oriented as much around social proof and validation as possible. And there's probably no more strong point of validation than your actual transaction history.
I think on my end, I just firmly believe that the marketing stack is broken right now. We just can't be in a situation where we're competing for attention when we should compete for patronage instead. So what I mean by that is brands should stop investing in marketing platforms and instead invest directly in their customers. Because your customers at the end of the day are the only people that matter to you as a brand. So why would you not try to find the most direct conduit to reach new customers and give them the experience that your entire brand marketing team has been obsessing over for the past however many years? To us, we just think that we need to pull a switch and short circuit this kind of tired system of taxes being levied by the Googles, Metas, ByteDances of the world, and instead say, how do I actually grab a consumer's attention, force them into my four walls, or give them the opportunity to go through my full store end-to-end flow, give them a little bit of a carrot to do so, but now I have this relationship with them. And to us, we're just left scratching our heads why somebody didn't try to find a way to give consumers the investment directly earlier.
Yeah, I just talked to Brewdog too, and that's how they scale their brand, giving the customer a piece of the pie and using that as a way instead of, and I think smaller competitor brands are leaning into this. People who are actually trying to attack the market are leaning into actually pushing the cost onto not the customer, but giving the customer an incentive to buy instead of you. But right now, what brands have to do is they go on Facebook and they're giving an incentive to the customer and they're paying for that incentive to go buy.
Placement, yeah.
So they're giving 20% off because advertising 101, you have to have a good offer. You can't just get them through. And then once they get a good offer, they're paying for that placement. So they're losing a lot on the margin. And especially if you don't have a high margin product, it's hard to survive on just paid acquisition all the time.
Totally. And I would add too, Claim is not coupons. Claim is not a 15% new customer offer. And Claim is also not affiliates. We're taking the CPA that you would otherwise pay and giving that to the customer. And I think the nuance there is important because what the customer is actually doing is they're going through, an e-commerce flow and they're paying full price at checkout. There's no coupon code to enter. There's no red ink through, the price. We're training them to pay full price and have the full experience. And then after they do make that first purchase, they're getting a Venmo back from Claim. And the Venmo is from Claim, which is a moment of delight and another kind of user experience, moment of magic. But because it's from Claim too, the brands are insulated from any sort of discounting risk or brand dilution perception. We work with really proud brands that don't discount. I think the reason that they're comfortable with Claim is because they see Claim as a customer acquisition channel, and Claim providing cash back is the same thing as a consumer of going to Nike and buying with your Amex. You'll get cash back on that purchase, but Nike doesn't feel like, its brand is on sale. And so I think if we can really build on this new paradigm of a carrot, kind of an inducement to go try something by actually taking some of that brand's marketing budget, but not receiving a discount, not receiving a coupon, we're able to kind of marry both objectives of marketers who are very concerned about obviously economics, but brand perception, and consumers who are very concerned about economics, but also discovering things and having moments of magic. And so that's the kind of balance that we're looking to strike here.
Yeah, one of the biggest lessons I learned just in personal life is you teach people how to treat you. And if you teach people that sales are a thing, they're just going to wait till the next sale. For example, there's a lot of things I'm waiting to buy on Black Friday because they know that they're going to go on sale and I won't buy it until Black Friday because the brand has taught me, hey, Black Friday is when everything's cheaper for the brand. So it's good that you're teaching them that skill. And I think it's really important that you just said the brands don't want to be associated with, there's already a built-in behavior of cash back in the world with the credit card. So getting the brand, hey, this brand doesn't, it's good if the brand doesn't also discount outside of Claim because then the brand really has to keep that high leverage moment of I never discount. That's what luxury brands do today. They rather burn the product than discount, which is funny, but it keeps their brand alive.
Yeah, I mean, we'd also rather have customers know that they're valuable. We'd love to have our users be more educated on how advertising actually works and understand that brands pay a CPA to reach them on Meta already, and that they deserve this CPA back because they are high LTV people. And so we'd love our users to deeply understand what they're getting when they try Claim and know that this isn't a sale thing. This is a brand saying, hey, we're really confident in our product, in the thing that we've spent our lives building, honing, whether it's a Sweetgreen or a Blank Street or a Shake Shack or whomever. They've spent a long time homing this customer experience in to be really excellent for you. And so they just want you to come in the door the first time and they know that you're going to love it. And if you don't have to come back, but you probably will. And so the more we can sort of teach them that that's the behavior that they're experiencing, I think the better off everyone is in the ecosystem.
And lastly, where can people find you two and what Claim's doing?
Yeah. Our website's claim.co. We're currently available for college students only. That will change in the next couple months. But you can find Luke and I both on LinkedIn, Sam Obletz and Luke deWilde.
Yep, I share a lot of Gen Z insights and data on kind of which brands Gen Z is engaging with. So if you have any questions or anything you want to see, the DMs are open.
It's so funny because Gen Z is literally are in the job market now. So most Gen Z are, or probably like half of Gen Z are in the job market. So I think people had the perception that they are these younger people, but they are going to slowly have more and more of the buying power now. So I think that the mindset should now, the next generation we got to think about is the Gen Alphas and how to deal with them. We'll figure that out next. But thank you so much for coming on the pod, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.